Do you use curriculum in your youth ministry, and should you? Today, we're going to talk about the pros and cons of using prepackaged curriculum in youth ministry.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Ministry Coach Podcast, where we give you weekly tips and tactics to help you fast track the growth and health of your youth ministries. My name is Jeff Lascola, and this is
Kristen Lascola.
Are you a curriculum user, or have you ever considered being a curriculum user? That's what we're going to talk about today.
Sounds like you're talking about drugs.
Have you ever tried curriculum?
Are you a user? Are you a user of the curriculum? Okay, well, we get a lot of questions about curriculum. Yeah. Lots and lots and lots. And I can understand why, because I feel like in the last, I don't know, maybe decade or so, curriculum has become a big deal and more options have come up and better options have come up. And you guys are lucky, because when I first started in youth ministry, I remember I found these old spiral bound outlines that a church had put out, and it was like the table of contents in the beginning. It was all typed up and it was like a laminated cover. And I don't know how I got them. They were in my office on my bookshelf one day and I used them. Like, it's a very, we're going to talk about like the pros and cons of curriculum and how I feel about it and stuff like that. And I'll start out by saying it is a great starting point if you are new to ministry. I think curriculum, especially the options that are out there now, are like definitely worth it, because it gives you a little more teaching confidence. It gives you a little more teaching direction, and it doesn't make it such like a stab in the dark, you know? Like, I remember being brand new and being like, what do I teach on?
Right.
Like, hello kids, open the Bible. And I was still developing in my faith and, you know, what God was doing in my life. And so as I've matured in my faith, I really, and I don't mean this in a snobby way, like if you're mature, you don't need curriculum, but I kind of took the training wheels off. You know, I don't need curriculum anymore. But back when I had first started ministry all those years ago, I definitely did. So here is the cons of why I currently don't use curriculum anymore, that prepackaged, you know, just plug and play curriculum anymore, although I had at some point. Because when I do, I feel like it ruins my teaching game a little bit. So I feel like I'm speaking, if this makes any sense at all, I feel like...
Do you feel like you're speaking someone else's words?
Yes.
Yeah.
I feel, and it feels very unnatural to me. It feels forced. I feel like I'm trying to... Like, when I develop a manuscript or an outline, it came from my own mind and my own heart. And so when I go to teach it, I can teach it very passionately. I can teach it very naturally, and it comes easy. And then I'll even add some things. And I feel like it's me and the Holy Spirit working together on this thing. And it's a labor of love. It is a lot of work. I will say that. But when I go to teach it, I feel like I usually can like knock it out of the park, because it's what the Holy Spirit has laid on my heart and has empowered me to speak. Now, it doesn't mean that when I like use an outline, I'm like a robot and I can't, but it just doesn't flow the same way. I am speaking someone else's words. And so what it took for me for a long time is like, okay, I have curriculum, but I do also have a voice. Where do those two meet? You know what I mean? And I think the longer I did it, the better I became at that. But that's just the sweet spot that you find over time. I think it's like, okay, I'm not going to rehearse and say this like a script, because it's someone else's ideas and words and what God is teaching them. So then where does that intersect with what God is teaching me, so that I can speak out of like a natural posture of like, this is coming from experience, or this is coming from the Holy Spirit, like in my life, and I'm sharing the overflow with you through this message. You know what I mean? So that's sort of why it's a con for me, is because that balance is very hard to find. It is possible, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. Secondly, I feel like the one more con that I've found over the years for prepackaged curriculum, and I think we talked about this on another episode, is that it tends to be below grade level in my mind. And so anything designed for like 7th and 8th to me feels a little bit more like 6th and 5th.
Yeah.
And I feel like something for 8th graders sort of feels like something for 6th graders. So I just feel like they target a younger audience. And I tend, and again, all this stuff is sounding snobby. I don't mean this sounds snobby. I tend to try to go a little deeper with my students and challenge them. Now, not to say that you can't bring it up a notch. And so you kind of like, how in the world could curriculum writers gauge where your particular students are at? They can't. And so they probably try to hit mid-level so the pastor can go above that and add some more depth. Or if you have some really new kids and they're new to the faith and they're new to Christianity and they just need the tip of the iceberg and you can't give them a whole lot else, then, you know, it could work. And so, you know, I kind of just got tired of having to doctor the outline so much to reach what I thought were my students' grade level and what was my teaching level, that it just sort of became like, I'm doing all this work anyways. Yeah. Why don't I just make my own stuff? And then third con for me is that they are expensive. The packages are pretty pricey. And when I first started out in youth ministry, I mean, I had what might be the world's smallest budget. And we've talked about the painful, embarrassing things I had to do because I had no money in that budget. Like get you a scarf from Dollar Tree for your Christmas present. I don't even think it was long enough.
It was a piece of yarn
to wrap around your neck. I found a picture of you and one of the other leaders wearing them the other day. And I'm like, this is just sad. I should have just been like, I'll give you $1.
Belt made out of yarn around my neck.
Here's the $1. Go get yourself
your own.
something nice. So those are the cons for me. I think, you know, if you have a larger budget, that's probably not a big deal. But for me, it would have been like curriculum would have probably accounted for like 20% of my budget, you know, for the whole year. So that was hard to justify.
Mine probably would have been even more than that.
Probably. Yeah. Maybe 50%. I don't know. Okay. So don't worry. This is not a curriculum bashing episode by any means, because like I said in the beginning, if you're brand new to youth ministry, I would say if you can afford it, do it. And here's why. Here's the pros. Number one.
Dramatic pause.
Number one. I'm seeing if they'll get more excited. It helps you have a really great jumping off point. Yeah. Okay. So building a talk from zero, like ground zero, is hard. Like you starting with a blank Word document and you have to come up with a sermon from the ground up of why the Bible is the only reliable source of truth. Go. It's hard. Yeah. It is very hard and very time consuming. So I feel like when you use curriculum, even if it's not like I am reciting this word for word, at least it gives you a topic. Right. At least it gives you the verses to go with that topic. At least it gives you a direction and it gives you what to teach. And a lot of them give you a really great scope and sequence of, hey, if you have kids for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, here's what they should know when they leave your ministry. We're going to talk a little bit about this a little bit, and they give a good variety to make sure you're covering all your bases. If you're a little nervous of not covering as much as you think you should. So that's a big pro. Also, another big pro that I love is that the prepackaged curriculum is often a package deal, meaning that you usually get small group discussion questions along with the talks because, oh my gosh.
Like graphics and bumper videos.
Yeah.
And things like that
like
too.
Some of them give the whole shebang and it's like definitely worth the money because, you know, it can be expensive because that was the con, but the pro side of that con is, I mean, could you like do a mathematical equation to see how much time it's saving you and then what those dollars actually cost? And then it's like, also you can use it year after year. Yeah. So you have it and then you get to sort of just use it forever. So if you could like 1 year, really bite the bullet financially and make it happen, then you'll have it forever. And then when you're tired of it and you don't want to use it, or you want to give it a makeover or change some things, you definitely have the option to do that. So I think curriculum is a great time saver, and it's good training wheels when you're learning how to teach, for sure. And when you're brand new. And so, cause right now I'm at the point where I've done so many series and so many messages, I basically have my own curriculum, because I have my own library of, oh, we did our truth series. Here's all the messages. Here's all the talk sheets, and I can recycle those. I can give them a facelift year after year. Sometimes I look back at my old stuff. I'm like, nerd, like what kind of question is that? I'll look at these talk sheets before I send them out to my leaders. I'm like,
which Mighty Morphin Power Ranger do you relate to the most?
The pink one, Kimberly, of course. Yeah, like the questions are cringy, or I'll be like, oh my gosh, how, like, because like the landscape of the culture has changed, and sometimes the questions are, I'm just like, no. So you can change and edit yours over time, and you can get better and better, because I like have a library of that now. And honestly, it came because at the time I couldn't find a curriculum package that I loved so much that I couldn't live without. Like I said in the beginning, nowadays people have really upped the game in youth ministry. Like, man, if you're just new to the game, it's like being vegan in 2023. There's a lot of good options out there, okay? That the people 10 years ago were living on peanut butter and jelly. Now we have all kinds of stuff. And same with curriculum. You were looking at a weird notebook that we found at a garage sale. Now you have everything at the tip of your fingers. So there's a few names we'll throw out because I haven't use them personally, but I know people who have, and I've heard really great things. So our children's ministry for a very, very, very long time has used Orange. Orange goes up through student ministries, but we don't use it. Our children's ministry does, and they love it. Parents love it. Great company. They have so many resources, all those little extra frills we were talking about. They have these posters and talk about what is like they describe each age to the parents and they put it up on the door. It's really cool. And then another great one, again, I haven't used it myself, but I know the people who made it, and they I've used their resources forever. Grow Curriculum, Kenny and Elle, their stuff is awesome. I use their game app. If you don't have their game app yet, it's really cool just to scroll through and get some ideas. It's free. And then DYM is not necessarily known for curriculum. They are more like a little series here, or a message here, or a game here, or a graphic here, like a little bit more like a la carte feeling. I have bought series off of there, but unless they've changed anything, I don't know that they've sold a full-on curriculum package. Comment below if I'm wrong on that. I usually go on there for a sweet game, for Pro Presenter,
a screen game kind of thing.
Yeah, like when we've been playing so many active games and it's time for a screen game on the weekend. I can't get away with that at my midweek program. They won't let me play screen games. But weekend services, I use DYM screen games a lot. And the cool thing is once you buy them, you have them. Yeah. So they're still in my downloads, and, I use them, recycle them, buy new ones. And they're so darn cheap. Their games are like $4, $5. And when you do, again, the math of saving you time and then what it costs is I think I just made money playing a DYM game. So those are my three. I'm sure there's more out there. There's other companies I've browsed and bought from, and I think those three companies sort of stand out to me. But you can comment below your favorite curriculum. Our community would love more ideas because this question comes up a ton, like we said. And here's the thing, this is going to be the hardest when you're starting out, hands down. And really what this is going to come down to is finding your groove as a teacher, as a speaker, and start to sort of build that muscle. And the training wheels of curriculum, I think, really help launch you into figuring out what kind of speaker you are. The truth is, a lot of youth pastors are not classically trained.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Why would they be?
Why would they be? Some go to college and get a degree in youth ministry, and I'm sure they teach you all about this stuff there. I don't know, because I'm a communication major.
But even if they do, it's probably, I could be wrong because I've never done it, but it probably is a class of 70 other classes.
Right. And so I think this is one of those things that you just have to learn sort of on the job.
Yeah.
And so it will come eventually, but the hardest time is at the beginning when you don't know what to teach, like we were talking about. You don't know how to teach very well. You haven't found your voice yet. And so getting that curriculum just at least takes one of those things off your plate. And then it gives you an example. And so it gives you an example of how to structure a message, how to use illustrations. Some even will like pepper and humor for you in there. And like, it just teaches you some of the elements that make a good talk instead of you, like, I still have the notes from my very first message, and it was on Eve, and it was so boring.
Redo it. We'll film it. We'll put it up on the channel.
Hello, kids. My name is Kristen. And I just remember the notes on it were just sort of like, this isn't like a college class on Eve. Like, you were a little heady, a little boring, a little factual. And so I'm like, cool. I had to take that feedback and sort of figure out like, where's my groove? And so all that to say, be encouraged that you can get there, and you can probably over the years lean a little less on the training wheels, but you just have got to have a good example to start with. So no shame at all. So here's a good question to ask yourself is, what do I want my students to know when they leave my ministry? So I have 6th, 7th, 8th graders. A really good idea would be for me to ask the 4th and 5th grade ministry, what do you guys talk about? What are they coming up? Assuming this is a kid that's going through our ministry at church. They're starting at birth and going all the way to senior, hopefully. But what are 4th and 5th talking about? For a long time, they were doing something called the flyby, where they would do creation, fall, flood. And then what comes after that? I don't know. I didn't get very far. And it was all these hand motions, and it was like a flyby of the whole Bible done in hand motions, so that they knew the story of the Bible like linearly. In
a linear way.
In a linear fashion. And so it was like, okay, well then maybe all those, like, you just scratch the surface. I can maybe go a little deeper and tell you, oh, here's what creation meant. Here's the domino effect that had. Fall, here's what the fall of man was, and talk about Adam and sin entering the world. Flood, like I could have done that. And then talk to high school. What are they going to be learning and expected to know? And what are you guys going to be focusing on once they get to high school? And I could kind of set up the bowling pins for them to learn that. I just set up the bowling pins. It was this visual I had, but nobody says that. Set up the
I'm sure
bowling
people that
pins
work
for
at
a home run.
People that work at a bowling alley probably say that all the time.
They probably do. And if you're watching, I see you, bowling alley people.
You are heard.
You are seen.
Okay.
You are valued. So like setting them up for success in the high school ministry that they're going to be a part of. So start to figure out, okay, well then what do they need to know in my ministry before they leave? And that's not even just knowing. What do they need to be capable of? Like I talk to them all the time about, guys, you've got to learn how to be quiet in a small group because you're going to go to high school and it's not going to fly.
Right.
Like they're going to look at you like you're crazy. Like they listen to each other. They take turns talking. They don't have to fart every 30 seconds to get their friends to laugh. They can keep their hands to themselves. These are skills you need to learn if you plan to go to our high school ministry.
Right.
So you're teaching them the skills for what's coming next, as well as like having a biblical foundation so that when the high school pastor is teaching them about whatever he's going to be teaching them or she, then it's like they at least have some frame of reference, because I think that's why they teach Bible stories to little kids, because it's like, we're in our Jonah series right now. And if they had no familiarity with who is Jonah and a whale or a fish, like they get so caught up. It says fish, whale, fish, whale, fish, whale. It's like, then I have to start, okay, let me tell you who
Right.
Moses is. Let me tell you who Abraham is. Let me tell you. And you'll get kids who are brand new and they won't know any of this stuff, but it's really helpful when kids come in and they know some Bible stories so that we can go beyond like, here's what happened to here's what this means. And here's where Jesus is in this. And here's what this means for you. And here's how this fits into the big narrative of the Bible. You know, we can take them a little deeper.
Yeah.
Age appropriate wise. And then in high school and adult, you know, it builds and builds and builds. And so I remember hearing all those stories and just being like, oh, cute little Bible stories. And then as I grew, I'm like, oh, wow, these mean something, you know, like, oh my goodness. Like these are like, you know, you just hear the like, all right, Daniel and his friends, they're like
On the flannel graph.
in the fire. Oh no. And you just look at it like it's almost like a storybook.
Right.
But then you get older and you realize this is history and you realize, whoa, whoa, whoa. So what we're trying to do is get kids to digest the Bible for the age they're at.
Yeah.
In the way that's going to hit them at that particular age. Like what can they handle and challenging them a little bit. So figure that out. What do they need to know when they leave my ministry? And then if you're still wondering what to teach, ask students or listen to what they're talking about. What are they curious about? What is confusing to them? What excites them or intrigues them? For me, my students love talking about the supernatural. They want to know about heaven. They want to know about hell. They want to know about what happens after you die. They want to know about angels and demons
Spiritual
and
warfare.
they're very interested in that stuff and that it's like, whoa, like there's more than what we see, you know, going on in this world. And they love talking about that stuff. Obviously I don't do that all year, but I make sure like, okay, we did a supernatural series. We did a what happens after you die series. And I sprinkle that in a whole lot of, you know, here's what the Bible says about heaven and hell and all that kind of stuff. And they lean in hard when I talk about that stuff. Another thing they love talking about is like a truth series of, all right, what is the source of truth? How can we know the Bible is true? I did a whole series where I didn't use the Bible at all. And I said, I want you to learn how to.
I'm not sure if I like where this is going.
I know my worship leader didn't either. He got real mad, but I said, hold on. I said, the reason I'm doing this just for a couple of weeks is because I want them to see that I can prove to them that the Bible is true without using the Bible. Because the problem is right when you get into a conversation with someone who doesn't believe in the Bible,
right.
And if you point to the Bible as evidence, the conversation is over. And so I said, the Bible can be proven through archaeology, through history, through science, through math, if you will. And I teach them like the Bible is so solid and so concrete and so logical to believe in it that you don't even have to use a Bible verse to prove it. And then we move into the Bible verses and prove how that lines up with science. And I love talking to them about the origins of the universe and the origins of life and, you know, all that kind of stuff that kind of like blows their mind a little bit. Because for me, that was what solidified my faith. Like anytime I would kind of like, and that's where great sermon series are born. And like, what did God teach you? Because I remember having these thoughts of like, oh my gosh, like, well, these people think they're right just as much as we think we're right. And what if I'm wrong just as much as they're wrong? And then I would be like, think of these things of like we all start at the same place. There was nothing. Now there is something.
Yeah.
And all of us have to make the jump from what happened between the nothing and the something, you know? And I take my students through this whole thing and they love it. And I enjoy teaching about it. And so the question for you as the teacher too is, what do you love teaching about? Where did your faith become real? What is God teaching you currently, thinking back on your life? And you might get some pretty cool sermon series out of your own experience. And, you know, a little tip I'll give you before we move on is make sure that they understand, like, and this is what Dots did not, sorry, that was a lot of, my brain is going faster. My brain is going faster than my mouth.
Rapped to it. That was pretty sick.
What would you rap right now? Go.
Give me a green eggs and ham. Hold on. Give me a second.
Sam, I am a ham egg. I forget it.
Sam.
I've been reading Fox and Socks a lot lately.
That's tough.
That's fun. I try to challenge myself. Don't make one
to
mistake.
not mess up.
Yeah.
I can't do that with just simple words. So
gooey, bluey, like new glue blue, sir.
Yeah.
Oh, it's good. It's a good one. But Really? What was I saying?
Something
Oh,
like that.
mhm. But it had a point, and the point was really, I can't remember.
Well,
Well, that's probably stupid, anyways. Um, well, it'll probably pop back in my head. But anyways, yeah, like what is God teaching you?
yeah.
And that's where great sermon series are born. And I just remembered what I was going to say.
Okay, good.
Okay, good. So as you develop as a teacher too, like what I didn't realize when I was younger, you know how I was saying like, oh, I knew a Bible story. And then I learned later, oh my gosh, this is what it actually means and why it has significance. Part of our job is to point them back to the gospel in every single series. Like David and Goliath is not about David and Goliath. It's about Jesus. Jonah and the whale is not about Jonah and the whale or a fish. It's about Jesus. And you know what? They didn't have scientific animal classification back then. So who knows? Whale, fish, fail, wish, whatever. Okay. It was a big animal, ladies and gentlemen. So like every story in the Bible's purpose is to point them to the gospel, point them to Jesus. So make sure you're dropping the gospel in every single series, every single message. How does this point to Jesus? How does this point to our redemption story? And like, because it's like a diamond, and every time you turn it and look through Jonah and the whale, you see a different aspect of a redemption story. When you start to look at Abraham and Isaac, you see another. I mean, it gives me the chills.
Yeah.
Like you just look at it and you're like, oh my gosh, he's screaming the gospel through like hundreds of years, through thousands of people and countless stories. It's telling the same story, but it'll hit you different every time. Like you see a different aspect of Jesus, and God forbid we make the Bible boring, because Chris Brown always says the Bible isn't boring. It's taught by boring people, and shame on us if we're the boring people, but this is so exciting. And so if you, all coming back to our curriculum conversation, if you need curriculum to jumpstart you into teaching and to figuring out what kind of teacher you are and give you some direction, then just bite the bullet, swipe the credit card, take out a loan and do it.
Yeah. And like you said, you can reuse them. And so it might be one of those things. I don't know if there's a discount if you go from 1 year and then you renew. I don't know if that's a discount. If not, they should. But if they don't, it could be one of those things. Maybe you use it every other year, and then you can recycle some of those. For those that are not, maybe they don't have the budget to get it. And I think actually a lot of those curriculum companies will cut you a deal, like work with the budget you have, which is really cool. So investigate that a little bit. I know Grow does. I don't know about the other ones. But if you are in a position...
Maybe you could just like split the Netflix password like you and your friend.
No.
Just kidding.
Don't do
Just
that.
kidding.
Super sketch. No, what I was to say is that if you are in a position where you can't afford to maybe go and pull the trigger on a curriculum, where would you go? You kind of answered this, I guess, in some ways. But where would you go for some... at least ideas to start sparking it?
Good
or
question.
Maybe are there even some free options?
And this is my go-to still to this day. I use it as a jumping off point. I go to Life Church, lifechurch.com, scroll down to the bottom, and it says free resources. Click on that, and it's for churches. And a lot of times they have some series that are suggested, that are popular, that are trending, and they're awesome. They have adult messages. Those are the ones I use most of the time. They have youth messages for students, and they're good. And they also have children's ones. And the cool thing is how you're talking about comes with a graphic. It comes with an outline. It comes with a transcript. It comes with a video. It comes with a talk sheet sometimes, like for your small groups. And so it saves you so much time, and it's completely 100% free. So it would be sort of like cherry picking what you want. It's not going to be like, okay, here's what you're doing in March and April and May and June, but it's like, here's enough to choose from. And so anytime, here's why I love Life Church, is because every time I sit down to do a message, I ask myself 3 questions. What has God said about this? And that's where we do our study time in the Bible. What have other people said about this. And to me, that's sort of like the method of like research paper. It's like, all right, there's a lot of smart people out there who did messages on Jonah. What are they saying? And sometimes I'll listen to their sermons or I'll look at their notes or whatever. And it's not that I'm like, ooh, I'm copying you word for word. But as I'm listening, God will like kind of like throw a thought into my head and I'll be like, that's my direction.
Right.
And then I'm going to run with this. Like it's almost like they pass me the ball and then I just start running with it.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, okay, good. I don't need you anymore. I got what I'm going to say. But sometimes it just sort of helps to see, what did other people say about this? It's almost like you're having a conversation about it and sermon prepping and talking with a bunch of other voices. And then you're like, I got it. So what did God say about it? What do others say about it? And then what is God saying to you about it? And I feel like those are the elements that start the spark for the message to kind of ignite. And then you start writing furiously and praying furiously and you get it. You're like, the message, is born. And so try that method a little bit if you're wanting to loosen up the training wheels a bit and try your hand at some more sermon prep. That's a good way to do it.
That you could also kind of use that same mentality too if you are doing curriculum, because like you said, not to copy it like verbatim, but put it in your words. And sometimes it might be, well, maybe it's about, I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but if there's a certain series that it's about and you're like, I like that, but I would like it more if it was kind of about this or this angle, then feel the freedom obviously to change it and aim in that way. I'm sure they tell you that when you purchase those things.
Yeah.
But that I feel like is the big, for me, is the greatest source of inspiration, is like when it's not copying, it's like you said, it's kind of sparking a new thought. It's inspired you to go a different direction, but it's that jumping off point. I know some people use ChatGPT, like the AI things.
Okay.
And they've used it to write sermons. And a lot of people say like, that's not good because this, that, and that's a whole discussion for another day. But I've used ChatGPT for other things, writing an email or just certain things like that, because sometimes I'm like, I can't start the wheel. Like I can't, or start the engine to go. And it's like, write an email to a client that says da 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 da, and then it'll do it. And I'll look at it and be like, okay, I'm not going to use most of what you told me.
Right.
But now I kind of know how I want the direction I want to go.
Starting from scratch. It's hard. It's like you go to Pinterest. Well, not you, me go to Pinterest for a recipe. It's like, okay, I have all the ingredients. How do I put them together and how much and whatever? Yeah. And then I follow it. And then I'm like, I'm going to add a little of this instead. Or I think it needs more of this. Or, oh, she didn't add enough of this. And so you do end up making it your own. But you just, like when you're just staring at a blank sheet of paper and like a topic, all of a sudden you're like,
I have no idea what is the first word that comes out of my mouth.
But it's way easier to sermon prep non-topically. I will say that. So if you do a book study, say James is so easy to teach because it's the most practical book I think there is in the Bible. And it means what it says what it means. It's pretty black and white. And so if you're trying to work that muscle of sermon prep, well, then topical is hard because let's talk about love. Okay, like what kind of love? Love between who? And what story do we want to use to illustrate love? And it could be like, that could be, you could talk about love for a year. So what do I want to talk about? I don't know. But if you're in the book of James and you just have to, like right now we're doing Jonah, it's like, well, I have nowhere else to go but Jonah 2. So that's pretty easy. But then the application and the illustration and all of that comes in, and that's what gives it dimension and helps the learning process. But it's so easy to go verse by verse and teach. Like literally, here's what it says. When you teach topically, that's where you have to get real creative and piece things together. And you might use stories and passages from all different parts of the Bible and weave them together into one, main idea. And then you have to bring an illustration. I mean, it's just a lot harder to build a topical message. And the good news is most prepackaged curriculums are topical.
Right.
And so when you need help with that, go to the topical Life Church, Grow, Orange, DYM, and there is so much help out there. Yeah. You got this.
All right, let's go and play the Fabulous Four trivia game. Yay!
It's time for some fun. Let's play the Fabulous Four trivia game. Yay!
All right. I don't think we've done office trivia yet. So I have some office trivia for you.
Okay.
All right. Finish this Michael Scott quote. Would I rather be feared or loved? Easy. Both. I want people to
love me so much they fear me. Fear me so much they love me.
Oh, okay. No, but I want people to be
afraid of how much they love me.
Oh, do we give it to him?
It's a half point.
I say 0.25. Because, when I was trying to think of Stanley Ipkiss last week, you were like, no. And I just needed more time.
Can I have 6 minutes like you took to think of it?
This game is not bringing out the best in us, Jeff. I don't think we should play anymore. All right. Which of Angela's cats did Dwight kill?
Snowball. I don't know.
I knew it started with an S, though. Sprinkles.
Would have guessed that.
Sprinkles was in the freezer and died. All right. What song is the group told to sing while giving CPR?
Staying Alive.
Did you know that because of the show or because that is what is actually taught in CPR classes?
I knew both.
So that's why I chose that question, because I'm like, even if you're not an Office fan, you might know, ha, 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 stay. But what did Michael, so she told him to do Staying Alive by the Bee Gees, and then he was demonstrating on the dummy, and he goes, I'm a woman, no time to talk. I think it was that one.
Isn't that the same song?
No, okay, it is. I'm like getting to the chorus. I'm like, wait, no, what does he do? He sings a different one.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to think of. I can put it in the comment section below if you can remember the song that Michael was singing when he should have been singing Staying Alive.
I don't know the words. Okay. Who said the following quote? Sometimes the clothes at Gap Kids are too flashy, so I'm forced to go to the American Girl store and order clothes for large colonial dolls. Who said that? Yeah. Think about the characters. Who would say that?
Probably Angela.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, Angela. It's so funny. The clothes at Gap Kids are too flashy, so I'm forced to go to the American Girl store and order clothes for large colonial dolls. You didn't get Sprinkles. You did get Bee Gees. You got Angela. Yeah, 2.25.
Which is above 50%. So that's all that matters. Let's do a community comment of the day, and then we will call it a day. This comes from J. Marie, who says, "This is awesome. I'm so grateful for you sharing your knowledge to help other youth ministries."
You're welcome, J. Marie.
That was the whole inspiration for this podcast. It continues to be, but it's to equip youth pastors to help.
Equip?
It's a special word for special people. I am special.
Equip
to equip youth pastors and basically give them what you wish you had starting out.
Poor me from 2004.
And fast tracking that growth and health so that you can add it and implement it into your ministries. We thank you guys so much for watching
and listening, and we'll see you next time. Do you use youth ministry curriculum? Do you use youth ministry curriculum? Should you use youth ministry curriculum?
Today we're going to go over the pros and cons to see if...
Do you use curriculum in your... Do you use...